Hey everyone, and welcome back to Founders Outlook, the show where entrepreneurial dreams meet reality. I'm Julia Tochu, and today we are getting inside scoop on another incredible founder's journey. Whether you're building your own business, thinking about starting one, or just love hearing how great ideas come to life, you're in the right place. Let's jump in and see businesses through a founder's eyes. A small town Minnesota girl who grew up knowing zero professional artists and became one anyway. She wrote for Emmy winning TV on Amazon. She has bylines in New York Times and Washington Post and more. She hosts 3 podcasts with over 2 million downloads and performs stand-up comedy. She teaches writing, podcasting, and debut memoir. Today on the show, we have Courtney. She is also the author of Girl Gone Wild. She's here to give us insights into her world, into her business, and everything in between. Hi, Courtney. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. It's nice to have you here today. And I mean, you wear a lot of cap and your story is so inspiring. How do you fit everything into one box? Writer, comedian, podcaster, teacher, everything. How do you fit it all into a box?
You know what? I have learned over time because I used to try to do everything in one day, like do all the different things. And I realized, it's like impossible to get anything done. And so, well, it looks like I have a lot going on. I actually do my best to like separate everything and, okay, I'm going to do podcast interviews for 2 weeks. Okay, now I'm going to focus on my book for a little bit. Now I'm going to, so I've really learned batching and really prioritizing my tasks is like the name of the game to get everything done.
Okay. And you grew up in a small town with no artists around you. How did you give yourself the permission to become one anyway? And how did you even dream about it and moved yourself to become one?
I guess I'm stubborn. I don't. I didn't know anybody who had made a life, with their art full time. But it was my biggest dream. And so I just let my dream kind of guide me for better or worse. Definitely there were some negative things that came out of me pursuing this dream, but I'm so glad that I chose to pursue an artist's life because I kind of can't imagine it any other way. And so and I think what was key is like allowing myself to pivot over time. It's like when the acting thing, I started to get kind of disillusioned. I got frustrated with auditioning. I didn't like being the last person brought in on the creative process. I allowed myself to try something new and tried writing to create opportunities for myself. And ultimately I discovered, that's the real dream. So I think being flexible enough to pivot within what you think you want to do is, a great kind of lesson.
And you did that at the age of 27, correct? How did that feel for you? Was it terrifying or liberating? Because I know moving from one thing to the next, sometimes the fear of, making that bold step. How was the feeling for you?
It was really hard to admit to myself first that I wanted to make this change. And then it was hard to tell other people because, I made such a big deal of this being my dream and did it seem like I was failing in some way? It was something that went through my mind. But I couldn't deny, how it was making me feel. And so, ultimately, once I could say it out loud and once I finally told my parents, I was like, whew, it felt like a weight came off of my shoulders. Yes.
So now moving on to Girl Gone Wild is a memoir, which means it's deeply personal, right? What was it like to decide to make your private life public?
It was a long process, really, from the first essay that I wrote to Girl Gone Wild going out into the world was like 15 years. So I had a lot of time to get comfortable with the idea of writing publicly. I also wrote a bunch of like single essays that I published, for the LA Times, for the Washington Post, for the New York Times. And so I had a lot of experience with like, what does it feel like to publish one story about my life? And that kind of got me desensitized a little bit to the process. And so by the time my whole book went out there, I had a little bit of a taste of how it would feel. And I just have to say, like, I wrote through my shame with The Girl Gone Wild. And so
Yeah.
the hardest part, was giving myself permission to tell those stories. And once I worked through them on the page and could really identify like what was my fault, what
Yeah.
were the contributing factors that went into these experiences, I could kind of forgive myself. And now
Yeah.
I don't care who reads it. Like it doesn't matter,
It doesn't matter.
so it's kind of lost its power over me. Yeah.
Oh, right. And currently you teach podcasting and writing. You have over 2 million podcast downloads. What does the number actually feel like? We that are still new in the game, did you ever imagine it would get there? And how does it feel to be there? Yeah.
Yeah. So Private Parts Unknown has been a podcast, like that feed has been alive for almost 10 years. So it's been kind of hard won. And that's another area that, the podcast started under a different name. It was called Reality Bites at the beginning. And I allowed it to evolve over the years
Evolve over
so that I
time.
stayed
Yeah.
interested in what I was talking about. I've had the pleasure of talking to like some really incredible people. So I think there are so many benefits to podcasting, kind of regardless of how many downloads you're getting, like getting the chance to talk to you. I get the
Yeah.
chance to,
Talk
on
to
my
people.
podcast, talk to
Yeah.
all these different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I was putting my book together, I needed blurbs for the book. You need other writers to
Yep.
say nice
Yep.
things about your book. And the reason that
Yeah.
I had people that I could go out to for my blurbs were because of my podcast. So I just think
Yeah.
the kind of networking and relationship building that you could do with your podcast is incredible.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same lane. I'm writing on a book called Visibility is Power, how important it is as a business owner, especially underrepresented business owners, to put yourself out there, wear your brand, represent your brand. It goes a long way. And I was with my editor the other day. I was saying, I think I will actually reach out to some of these founders I've spoken to get their views on visibility and what they think, and incorporate that into a book. I think it would be nice. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice, with podcasts, you meet incredible people. Without this podcast, I wouldn't have met Courtney, and now I'm speaking to Courtney, right? So it's such a
Yeah.
privilege. So going back to podcasting as well, what is the one thing holding most creators back from building something real? People don't want to be vulnerable. They
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want to, they hold themselves back. What's that one thing you think that is keeping them from, doing so?
Well, I think, sometimes people are worried about being vulnerable or about being their full authentic self. But I think also another trap that people get into is, it's important what your audience thinks, but you really have to have
Yeah.
the passion to guide your
For what you're
project.
doing.
And so, yeah, if you are thinking too much of like, is this a popular topic? Or, like, yes, you can ask yourself those questions, but you should really be, I think, letting your passion drive a lot of your decision making, because,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing Private Parts Unknown for 10 years if I wasn't passionate about the topic. And so,
True.
and I think people can tell, listeners can tell how you feel about it, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
impossible to hide. So my advice to early creators would be like, make sure it's something you're obsessed with.
Is make sure the topic you're talking about or anything is something you're obsessed with. That's a good one. And going back to Girl Gone Wild, is it now out? How can people find the book? And what inspired you to really push through and write the book?
Yeah. So Girl Gone Wild is out. It's available like on Amazon. In the States, you can also get it through Barnes and Noble and through bookshop.org. You can request it from your local bookstore. But if you're in Canada, the UK, Australia, you can get it on Amazon. It's been really interesting launching this book. I have learned so much.
Yeah.
I'm about to go on my book tour. So putting that together has been really interesting.
Yeah.
I think if I were going to do it again, and I'm writing another book, so I will have a chance to
Nice.
do it again.
Yeah.
I would build a longer runway. Like I didn't think, people said, you want to be fully ready, like at least 6 months out so that you have all that time to do promo. And I was like, do you really need
Yeah.
all that time? Because I was still kind of editing. And you really
Yeah.
do need all of that time to get all your ducks in a row because it goes so fast. And another
Yeah.
one of my lessons from the book launch was, you do so much in the lead up. And then once it's out, what I realized is, oh, I'm going to be promoting this book for a full year or more. Like it doesn't stop. Like it's an
Yeah. Yeah.
ongoing process.
Ongoing process. Yeah. And this your book tour. Are you coming to Canada? Because I'm located in Canada. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I am thinking about it. I might go to Vancouver and I might go to Toronto, but TBD.
Oh,
Where are you at?
not decided yet. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta. So yeah, no worries. I
Oh,
was just
okay.
curious. Yeah, I was just curious. Wanted to know, if you're coming to our country. So
I'm thinking about it.
you host three podcasts. You started with one and you moved it up to three. How was that process? And each of them, are they kind of related or you're talking about different things on different platforms?
So I love Substack. I'm really bullish on Substack right now because I think a
Really?
newsletter is such a great thing for a podcaster to have a companion newsletter
News,
is
yeah.
so great. You don't have to host your show on Substack. I do host my show on Substack for Podcast Bestie. I don't for
Mm-hmm.
my other podcasts. But just being
Mm,
able to build your email list is so important. And so that's a huge part of Podcast Bestie is a newsletter and a podcast, and The Bleeders is also a newsletter and a podcast. And so what I've really love about both of those shows is that they're craft focused. They're
okay.
related kind of to my teaching that I do. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was a way for me to stay in touch with my students, a way for me to keep teaching even when I'm not doing an actual class, because sometimes I'd get
Yeah.
to the end of a class and I'd be like, there's so much more I want to share. There's so many more like lessons I want to impart. And so doing those podcasts and the newsletters that go with them gave me a way to
Yeah.
stay in touch with my students, promote my classes, keep learning myself from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what drives Podcast Bestie and The Bleeders, which is about book writing and publishing. And they were also great ways, like I said, with The Bleeders, like
Yeah.
it was so awesome for me to get to learn about publishing before I actually published my book because I had so many conversations with authors. And
Yeah.
so I learned so much. I used it basically as like my own training ground, and it's just
Yeah.
people get to listen.
Yep. So a lot of founders struggle with being more than one thing. They feel like they have to pick, but you were never, you didn't have that feeling at all. Do you think doing multiple things at the same time kind of distracts you, or do you think you managed it well, right? Do you think everybody should follow that path? Because I struggle with it. That's to be honest. I struggle
I
with
don't
doing
think
multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think it's for everyone, and I don't think, you know, it's both. It
Okay.
helps in some ways that I can cross promote on my different platforms and I
Mm-hmm.
have multiple revenue streams. And so there are good things about it, and I have a lot of passions. So I can't imagine doing it any other way. But I
Yeah.
think, for somebody that has like a clear like one thing that they're interested in, just
Yeah.
going like doubling down on that is a really smart way to go because arguably, if I just was focused on one thing, I would get where I wanted to go faster. Like it
Yeah.
took me a long time to publish my first book. And so I don't think this path is for everyone, but I
Yeah.
do think, we live in this kind of creator economy world. And so it is becoming increasingly common for people to need multiple revenue streams
Multiple
and
streams
to
of
really
income.
like
Yep.
build your platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
And different like audiences. And so if it is your instinct, then I do encourage you to follow that path and like listen to yourself and if I wouldn't unnecessarily create extra things because
Yeah.
because of an external reason, but like if it's within you to want to do all those things, I think
Yeah.
why limit yourself?
Why not? So, Courtney, I want to go here.
Why not?
You've done something that a lot of founders are terrified of. You have made yourself visible, not just professionally, personally, in a memoir, on stage as a comedian, a podcast host, about love and sexuality. And if you're watching this, and, for viewers watching this, do you think visibility is important in today's world?
Yeah. I mean, it would be amazing if you could just be an author that you didn't have to put yourself out there all the
Put
time,
yourself out
but
there. Yeah.
you have to now. I mean, back in the 90s, I think publishers would do a lot more promotion for you, but that doesn't really exist. That kind of support is very rare. And so you have to have a platform.
Yeah.
And, you know, here's the thing about my book launch. Like, most of the opportunities that I've gotten came because I have a podcast, because I have a newsletter, because of all these ways that I already put
You've
myself out
built.
there before
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
And so it would be a lot harder for me to sell and promote this if I didn't already have those things set up. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of a necessary evil these days, even if you don't like it. Like, I teach a class that's about
Yeah.
how to build platform for writers who shudder at the thought, which I wasn't crazy about the idea of needing it at the beginning. But I think it's really important. And so, yeah, you kind of have to be visible.
Okay. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you or get in contact with you if they want to, maybe join your class for podcast or whatever? How's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. So I post about all my teaching at courtneykocak.com/teaching. I also post about my other stuff on my website. I'm at Courtney Kocak on all the social media accounts. And, I have my podcasts, Private Parts Unknown, The Bleeders, and Podcast Bestie that you can check out if you're interested in those things as well.
Yeah, I'll surely check them out. I'm just curious, are you still into stand-up comedy?
Yes, I have a show
Ooh.
coming up. Yeah, I'm getting ready for a taped show in June. And so I'm
Nice.
figuring out what I want to do for that set. And
Yeah.
it's such a good outlet for me. You know what I've done to really, because I've been so focused on the book, is I take this class to make sure that I'm writing new material. And so every week I have to show up and I have new material. And it's been such a good outlet to like keep me engaged instead of letting that fall to the wayside when I've been busy with my book stuff. So,
When you look at it, you find out that they are all intertwined. They are all connected one way or the other. Nice. But before I
yeah.
let you go, Courtney, we do something here called the Raw Five. 5 fast questions, no wrong answers. First thing that comes to mind. Failure and fear, which one has taught you more?
Failure for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I've learned so much by falling on my ass. Yeah.
Yeah, they say that failure is feedback, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Best advice you've ever received as a creative founder? One sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was secondhand advice through an ex of mine. I heard it from another actor, but you have to live your life because ultimately art is a reflection of life. So sometimes we get so obsessed with our careers that we don't remember to actually live our life, which is, where we get all of our inspiration from. And so I always think of that, and that's such good advice.
Okay. And one thing you wish you had done sooner in your career or in your business, what's that one thing?
One thing I would have done sooner, I think this is counterintuitive, but I would have slowed down. I was in such a rush in my early career, and I think some of my mistakes came from being in such a rush. And so I really would tell my younger self, like, just slow down because you'll get everything you want once you're ready. Once you have refined your craft and you're, good enough to publish your book will be published. And so I would just say, slow down and really focus on getting good at what you do.
Okay. And what does success actually look like or feel like for you right now?
I feel like I'm so happy with everything that I have going on. So I'm not necessarily chasing, like would I like more? Would I like to do it at a higher level? Yes, but like
Mm-hmm.
just remembering that the journey is so fulfilling, and like getting to, staying present and getting to be involved in this book launch is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I try to remind myself like I'm living my past self's success story right now.
Wow. Thank you, Courtney, for sharing and for letting us into your world. And viewers, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining us today. See you all on the next one. Bye.